eventually Kubernetes took over. Those were also the Docker days, guys. So it's really cool to see this now 10 years later. And I hope you guys enjoy the pizza. It's from Magic John's, hipster style. Karim is our speaker. He's much better than me at this.
Thank you so much, Chris. So kudos to Chris and Perfect Scale for sponsorship for food today. And not only that, Chris is a regular community member, so hoping to see more familiar faces over time. So please come regularly. This is a small community, and we don't want to make it like a really formal event. So chat, interrupt, raise hands. This is a discussion. This is no formal setting where you have to we want to learn from each other. We want to make it feel organic. And this is an intimate setup, right? So feel free. Without further ado now, we have Karim, our first speaker. So please give a huge round of applause, and we are going to learn from him. So.
Hey, folks. Yeah. Sound check. Do you hear me well? Good. Okay, cool.
Are we recording?
Display check. Yeah. Sound time. Yeah. As expected, yeah, cool. Yep.
Yes.
So many technical stuff, yeah. Even at work, I do less. Okay. Hello, one more time. My name is Karim. I'm DevOps engineer at Perfect Scale. Usually I'm living in Vienna, and today I came to Berlin to have a talk about reaching continuous and effective scale in Kubernetes. We will talk about a few tools today. One of them is Carpenter, second one is SCADA, and of course Perfect Scale. And regarding Carpenter, we will talk about it on AKS and EKS. Yeah, but most of the things will be just cloud agnostic, yeah, and everything should be fine. Feel free to stop me at any moment, because the topic today will be really hard and really minimal requirements, technical to get this point. It's 12 years. But of course, yeah, I'm kidding. The main thing what we will talk about today, it's day-to operations, yeah. So my Kubernetes journey started 5 years ago, and before we started it, we were planning how we will go from the hell of virtual machines, which we were needed to we as a DevOps team, we had also a team of technical guys who were spinning up the virtual machines for us. And after that, 3 days later, we were able to use these virtual machines. Yeah, moving to Kubernetes, we hope that we will have no more of it, but it's another story. Yeah. Day zero, it's requirements, architecture, design, random stuff here regarding the planning to migrate to Kubernetes. Day one operations, you are happy or maybe not happy. Yeah, you are checking all that stuff, trying kubectl, trying Helm and all other things, preparing your smoothie, I don't know. Yeah. And on day two, things come to real life. Yeah, now you have few applications already running in your cluster, but now you need to think about scaling your cluster, some stuff of monitoring, HPA, some scaling of cluster itself, and many other things. And today we are celebrating the 10th anniversary of Kubernetes. But for this 10 years, since one still from day one, the problem of day two operations not solved. Yeah, one of this problem is workload right sizing, and many solutions are focusing on that. But what is workload right sizing itself? Yeah, as you know, to make any kind of scheduler work well, we need to set requests and limits for our resources. And right sizing is this green area between our requests and limits, where our application is working well. If we are outside this green area, for example, if we misprovision some of our requests, we can have just freeze scenarios. Yeah. In case of over-provisioned workloads, we'll just waste our money. Some CO2 emission will be too high. For under-provisioned, yeah, we'll have SLA breaches and some kind of reliability and performance issues. Or of course we can always have option to not define any requests, but entire orchestration might be broken. If we will misprovision limits, we no more have cutoff switch. Yeah, some of our workloads can eat all the memory on the node, for example, and it can lead to some kind of domino effect. Yeah, when after some of our workload failed, or when we have some memory leak in some application, it will corrupt all our cluster. In case of under-provisioned limits, we also can breach SLA, because, for example, we will have out of memories too often, we will have CPU throttling, and so on. Yeah, and of course, if not defined, everything will be great. Yeah, but maybe will not work. And the reasons, yeah, why we still have such issues with workload right sizing in the clusters, there are few of them, yeah. And first, let's talk about shift left. I believe that Kubernetes is awesome platform for platform engineering, yeah. And we just need to provide some tooling for our developers, for example, to make the right thing inside the clusters. So, for example, in our team, as DevOps engineers, we are not defining any requests and limits of the workloads in the cluster. All of them are defined by application developers. But when it happens, the developers may act as kids in a candy shop, yeah, and we just wanted to have all CPU cores available in this cluster, all gigabytes of memory available, and in the result, the workload, which should be just 50 cents, yeah, it will become a huge $100 workload. On the other hand, yeah, it's not the only reason why we can have under or over provisioned workloads. The workloads load is always have seasonality and dynamic change. Yeah, because for example, this Sunday we will have Father's Day, I guess. Yeah, and we can prepare our we can allocate 5 times more requests, for example, than we usually do for some of our microservices. And okay, we prepared for this event, but we never know will this be enough, or on Sunday we will get some SLO breaches. But also some events are happening unexpectedly, yeah, and traffic load may increase without any extra condition, yeah, just because something happened, yeah, or maybe yeah, never mind. One more thing, it's continuous delivery. Every day we deploy few versions of our applications to the production, and we actually don't know did the last code changes improved the performance of the application, or maybe right now our application need more resources. Of course, we have solution for that. Yeah, it can be we can run load testing before each deployment to production. But I have a question for you. Are you running load testing before deployment to production? Yeah, actually no, yeah. And we also don't do that because it can create much more waste on the other hand, and it actually doesn't give us any guarantees that tomorrow everything wouldn't change. Of course, not only these reasons can lead to not right-sized workloads. Yeah. For example, when I just beginning my journey, we migrated a few services to Kubernetes. As ingress, we had Nginx, and it had all the requests and all the limits set. But our latency was around 2 seconds, 3 seconds, and so on, after just 100 milliseconds on the VM. And we were increasing the request and so on, and nothing happened. We onboarded monitoring, we started to see throttling, we were thinking that, yeah, maybe our CPU request is too low, we increased the CPU request, but it still didn't help. And one day, one of my colleagues just removed the CPU limit, and actually it helped. But before we did that, we increased and over-provisioned the CPU request for this application, and even on low usage, it had a few cores allocated, which actually was not needed. After that, we had discussion, and we had a suggestion, maybe we shouldn't set requests at all. So we ran the POC on my machine. I spinned up micro Kubernetes and didn't set any requests, any limits, and it worked. Well, very well, until until it went to to real cluster, yeah. Of course, we have a lot of reasons to have this problem, and on today's talk we will talk a little bit about solution for that. Yeah, but before we dive into it, let's talk about horizontal port scaling. Yeah, because before any kind of vertical scaling, we can try to horizontally scale our workloads. Of course, for horizontal scaling, we can utilize HPA, the well-known component inside the cluster. It works based on requests and custom metrics. Also, in my experience, I have some mistakes which I made. I said HPA based on 50% of request. Actually, I didn't expect that it would be based on request. When I saw HPA first time, I was thinking, yeah, I set limit, and based on that, 50%, it will be 50% of limit. Yeah, but it wasn't. We had many replicas. They were over provisioned, so we didn't get any kind of real load. But scheduler decided that we need so much amount of replicas. And to address that, yeah, my painful solution for that is to set HPA in a range from 80 to 130% if you are setting it based on resources. Why from 80 to 130? Because if you utilize pod for 80%, you already have some space to grow up. Why 130? Because for some kind of application, you can set range between request and limits a bit higher. Yeah. For example, it might be some application where you have a spike in memory, for example, when you get the huge request. I don't know, something Loki, for example, yeah, or whatever, yeah, something what dynamically counts on the fly. But of course, yeah, to use HPA based on requests, you need to properly set requests itself. So we are coming back to the issue of right sizing. Yeah, that when we wanted to scale something horizontally, we still need right sized workloads. But of course, you are not only limited to resource-based scaling. Yeah, you can utilize tools like KEDA, and here is short example of KEDA, which is triggered based on RabbitMQ. and the length of the queue. KDE itself have a lot of integration with queues, databases, and other like event sources, and you can simply like utilize it to rewrite your architecture to like from like long-living deployments, for example, to some scale jobs which can be triggered at the moment when it's needed. Yeah, and you can save some boxes in your cluster on top of that. But still, yeah, when you scale some workloads even on other triggers, you still need to set the proper requests. Okay, now you like scaled, for example, scale job here, or your deployment is like have more replicas right now, and you need more nodes. To address that, Carpenter will scale node for you at the moment when you actually need it. And why Carpenter? Yeah, for example, why not cluster autoscaler? The reason is how like cluster autoscaler triggering the scaling of the node. It's when in cluster happens like insufficient resources events, yeah, that no more nodes available to schedule such like workload. It will trigger the cloud provider API to spin up new node. Yeah, the only reason. But Carpenter, on the other hand, yeah, it have smart node type selection. You're just giving the list of nodes to it, or you are giving, or by default it's like able to work with all available nodes and node types in cloud providers. And based on the algorithm first fit decreasing, it will choose the node which it should like to spin up to fit your needs, yeah, to avoid any like, for example, you're running just small job which need few hundred megabytes and half of the CPU, and for that cluster autoscaler, for example, will spin up for you very large node, yeah, but Carpenter will be able to spin up just like tiny node for it. And of course, very smart consolidation policies. In cluster autoscaler, we have only one policy, which is like when you have no more pods on this node, the node will be like descheduled, yeah. In Carpenter, we have two policies for that. One of them is the same, yeah, when you have no more resources. But the second, it's like consolidation, when instead of, for example, two small nodes, it can create one single node which will cost you less, and so on, yeah. And yeah, to set up Carpenter, first of all, you need to do some magic on the like cloud provider side, provide all the like service accounts with all things needed to provision nodes. After that, you can install like Carpenter Helm chart. And after that, you need to create custom resource EC2 node class in case of AWS. Here, what interesting, yeah, we are able to configure everything what we needed regarding like instance itself. We also able to set like IMI family and like labels and tags when needed. What's cool is that like for a long time, Carpenter was AWS only thing, but since December, I guess, Azure also investing a lot of efforts into that. And now we have Azure plugin for Carpenter, which open sourced, and you can like install it and use it inside your own cluster. And we're also like providing it as managed solution, so you can try it. With open source version, to like make it work, you need to also create CR AKS node class. Here we have like also, I guess, more specs available, but what general needed, yeah, it's here. And after that, when node class is created, you need to create node pool. What is node pool? Node pool, it's like you will have multiple node pools. Yeah, also node classes and node pools, it's like many-to-many objects. Yeah, you can have many of them. And node pool, this is a thing where you define all the things related to node itself. Yeah. What interesting here, yeah, on the node pool level, you can define the consolidation policy. Yeah, when underutilized, it's the consolidation policy which I was talking about. Yeah, when you will have, for example, two machines which can be consolidated into single one, or when you have a large machine but resources on it utilized just on like half. Yeah. Instead of that, Carpenter might suggest you to like spin up the smaller machine, for example. Yeah. Another thing is, yeah, here is an example of how you defining the list of instance types. And yeah, and of course you can configure how much resources you will reserve for kubelet and for the system, because not only like workloads are able to be over-provisioned, yeah, kubelet and system also might be over-provisioned if you reserve too much resources for them. Do you have any questions regarding QuizCR? Oh, all good.
Do you have the Azure version?
I guess it's kind of the same. Yeah, because Node Pool is cloud agnostic.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess that like on node class level, we can define like cloud provider themes, and on Node Pool, you are just like the cloud provider related thing. It's just like let me show you in the bottom here, like in the requirements. Yeah, you are defining the instance type. For Azure, it of course should be like instance types from Azure, and so on. Yeah. Yep. And of course, like the thing which I maybe forgot to show here, capacity type, it's not fitted. Capacity type is spot here. So you're always able to like run spot, on demand, or even reserved instances with Carpenter. Yeah. Regarding consolidation, I already told that we have like two consolidation policy. One of them is when empty. For that, you have like trigger to run consolidation after some time when the node is empty. Yeah. And when underutilized, I already told about it. Yeah, you can control it even on pod level, because, for example, what happened in our cluster is that we were using when underutilized consolidation policy, and we had a lot of consolidation events. Really, like the workloads was disrupted every 10 minutes, and as far as I know, there is like no still like toggle to how often like run consolidation and so on, but things might change already. Yeah, and so for that cases, the part of solution is that you can configure it on the pod level. You are defining the pods which shouldn't be, if some pod with this annotation is existing on this node wouldn't be consolidated. Yeah, and you can configure it on the specific node level too. Also, Carpenter is yeah.
Doesn't that create fragmentation issues then?
Would you also mind repeating the questions for the recording?
Yeah.
Does that create fragmentation issues?
What do you mean?
If you set the like do not disrupt policy on the pod.
What?
So while imagine those pods might be spread out through several nodes,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have several nodes which can't be consolidated and get stuck with those pods.
Yes, it might happen. Yeah, that you will have underutilized nodes, but still you have like when when consolidation event doesn't happen, that means that node will be still in the cluster. But all the other pods, they can be moved back to this node to near to this pod which stopping the consolidation and so on.
Right. So it is still part of
Yeah, it works. Yeah.
Okay. To answer my own question, I guess if you have a lot of scaling events, pod scaling, HPA events, for example, then the fragmentation that would counteract the fragmentation.
Yeah.
Okay.
In general, you can come if you will see the huge fragmentation. You can come kill this pod, and it will be rescheduled somewhere. Yeah. Actually, you can even kill node. The new node will spin up. Yeah. And Carpenter also allowing you to work with reserved instances. To do that, for example, what was deleted? Yeah, imagine it's the general file. Yeah, what was added? It's additional node pool for stateful set. Yeah, for example, we have here node pool stateful, and we have node pool stateful reserved. To work with reserved instances, we need to specify, for example, the zone where our reserved instance is was bought. Yeah. In list of instance type, we of course removing all the instances which are not reserved. Yeah. And keeping just, for example, in our case, the single instance which we bought, and we add more weight to it for Carpenter to prioritize with node pool over others. Yeah, and it will help you to run reserved instances. To read more about Carpenter, we have awesome articles from my teammates, how to use Carpenter with AWS reserved instances from Alexander Velitsyn, and getting the most out of Carpenter with perfect scale from Anton Weiss. And also, we have an article, but I forgot to include the QR code, about the monitoring of Carpenter. Because sometimes Carpenter also, not Carpenter itself, but events inside the cloud might lead to that, for example, the node will be created, but because of some AMI issues, it cannot register inside the cluster. And without monitoring the Carpenter itself, you won't be able to find it. Yeah. And in this article, there is also link to Grafana dashboard and stuff which will help you to address that. But yeah, coming back to our resources. Okay. How to schedule workloads with Carpenter, yeah? Of course, it schedules everything based on requests. And it doesn't take into account any usage and so on. It only counts the requests. And so what we have, yeah? We have HPA, which is based on resources, which need some cluster level scaler, Carpenter in our case, which will spin up as new nodes also based on resources. And we need some tool for right sizing. And to address that, we created perfect scale because during all our experience with Kubernetes, we always had this pain when we don't have right-sized workloads. And yeah, the name itself telling about it, yeah, workloads will be perfect scale. What actually perfect scale is, it's automated Kubernetes optimization and management platform. And simplifying, what we do is we are collecting data inside the cluster, aggregating, analyzing it, and giving recommendations on top of that, which requests and limits you should set for your resource, for your workloads, I'm sorry. And after that, we also have component which can automatically apply recommendations in your cluster. And let's have a small demo time. Yeah. Here is the UI of the perfect scale. It's a solution. We will go into like just single cluster, for example, this one. What perfect scale can help you with? It's like reducing amount of your waste. Yeah, because if your workloads are over provisioned, what it produce amount of waste. Yeah, and you can like sort here by the waste, and for example, you will find like two most wasteful workloads here, or for example, here the workload recreation job, which like wasting just like 100% of it actual like cost. Yeah, you see like the cost is 16 bucks, and 16 bucks out of it was just waste. Why? Just because some of our developers set like the request as 8 gigs, limit also as 8 gigs for RAM, but application was consuming less than 1 megabyte, I guess. Yeah, so it's like too much, yeah, for that. And the same like regarding CPU. Yeah, we set request as 2 cores, was consuming less than 1 millicore. So just disgusting example, but as it, yeah, go on.
Just out of curiosity, because I see those also from other tools, and always wondering how they actually come to the conclusion. Because if I have an application which has a kind of well, different workload at different times, then if I look at these kind of numbers in an idle time, of course they look bad. But if I then set the recommendation and then I have a load time, it's not going to work.
Yeah, the question was like how we can give recommendation for workloads which are changing over time. Yeah, the load where it's changing. Yeah, I will show it just in a minute. And like we are addressing that first of all with few things. Yeah, one of the things it's like revision awareness. When we know what the version of application is running right now, and on top of that we can like tell across all like the usage. Yeah, we can see all the spikes and so on. Yeah, because we are not taking into account just like for example, 5 hours. Yeah, no, we are taking into account all the period when we were monitoring this workload. Yeah, and for the like resiliency issue, yeah, this is very relevant for workload with resilience issues. And let me show you one workload. Oh, here we go. Yeah, here you see the application is a little bit higher, and usage of it, yeah, it was like 90% higher. It was like 6 gigs of RAM. At the highest spike it was 10.5 gigs. Yeah, and it's changing over time, of course. And based on that, like we are giving recommendations, but here you see our recommendations are aligned fully with like with the current ones. Why? Because this workload is under automation. Yeah, and we can see which automation events were happening in this cluster. For example, today, just like 2 hours ago, the automation came and increased the memory request from 8 gigs to 11 gigs. Why? Because in this application happened out of memory, yeah, and was 2 restarts and so on. Yeah, but before, for example, the resources was set to like 16 gigs, yeah, and we decreased that because like usage for a couple of days was too low, yeah, and we don't need to over provision so much of resources, yeah, and automation is able to like address and automatically change resources in the cluster for your workloads.
Sometimes some legacy workloads, like Java workloads, you need to also adjust the heap size.
Yes.
Do you do that with
So in general, we are working on fully supporting Java, yeah, because when you spin up the pods with Java inside, and it's showing like the wrong memory usage all the time. Yeah. We have solution for that. We can talk about it in person. Yeah. Yeah. And we are waiting a lot for in-place resource changes. Yeah, you know the fun fact about in-place resource changes, it can only decrease the resources. Yeah, I was surprised. And
It does solve the startup problem for Java applications.
yeah, it could. Yeah, but I'm actually like don't know like for how long. It's already like in alpha for free versions. Yeah, and
Yes, it's a feature flag still.
yeah, so not sure when it will be like publicly available, like for cloud providers.
If I understand correctly, in case of out-of-memory cases, you are adjusting the memory requirements automatically, and then there is no manual intervention, whatnot, correct?
Yes.
In this case, is there an upper limit? So because of like a cost effect or whatnot, or the real issue, what is happening? Why there is a out-of-memory case? Is there any automatic profiling starting in case of such an errors or event samples? Is there other things behind this automation?
So actually we don't do any kind of profiling things in the background, yeah, but what we do when automation enabled, yeah, and when we achieved, for example, yeah, out of memory event happened, after that we increasing the memory request and memory limit, yeah. You can configure how much time you allow automation to increase the memory limit during the day or during the week. And for example, let's toggle will be on like 3 increasing per day, yeah. And when these 3 events will happen, you will get alert that this application have potential memory leak, yeah. And after that, you can start your investigation and start sampling, for example.
Profiling, auto-profiling can be like a good capability to it. Also, what about how you handle this, like a hand chart or the manifest file and keeping the configuration of the limits? So you are updating something on the production, but the infrastructure as a code or the configuration still remains the old version. If we redeploy, so all the things will be overwritten. So is there a reconciliation part from the other side, not from the Git repository, but from Kubernetes to Git kind of?
Under the hood, we are using the mutating webhook. So we don't need, when you will deploy the new version of your application, yeah, or for example, if in your Argo, Flux, whatever sync policy is automatic, yeah, you can expect that like your workloads will be like returned back to the same values, yeah. But actually, we do changes on the pod level, so the after sync still like keep working as it is, yeah, because deployment is not changed. But on the pod level, you will get the resources based on our recommendations. But we know that developers are always smarter than us, yeah, and we trust them. If you change the resources, yeah, for example, you decided to increase the request, for example, you are deploying the new version with increased request, and your changes will be applied, of course. But if you didn't change the resources, we will apply recommendations, yeah. Yeah. And so, on top of that, yeah, shift left is solved, because developers now have 2 things, yeah. They have UI where they can come to check the recommendations for their like workloads, and we also can use it as additional like data tool, yeah, for them. But if they don't want to go anywhere, they can just simply automate the workload. Yeah, just a second, yeah. Automate the workload, and it will be the resources for it will be automatically adjusted, yeah. And less headache for developers and for DevOps and for SRE teams too. Seasonality also solved, because you can, for example, do some manual preparation before, for example, Black Friday, you are increasing and scaling up your cluster as a hell, yeah? And automation will respect it, and for like few days it will keep the request and limits high as you set it up. But after that, when you will not be needed it anymore, and our application will see that the usage is like decreased, it will also start to gradually decrease your resources. Yeah, you don't need anymore like to handle that. And continuous deployment also solved, because now you have kind of load testing right inside your cluster. Under like real load, we are collecting data under real load. We know that your application like 95% of the time requires this amount of resources. We will recommend some amount of resources on top of that, yeah? And you don't need to do any kind of like manual profiling to address that. Yeah. And next slide, yeah. Do you have any questions? Yes, you do.
I suppose you do, but do you export metrics to like the cost of workloads directly so that alerting could be set up, for example, and limits could be set up for teams or workloads?
Regarding what we export, yeah, we have API, so you can like pull our data, because we want to make it as like, for example, Prometheus data source, because it will be like publicly available, or we need to create some networking for that. Yeah, not a good deal. Yeah, you can access the data via API, of course. We have integration with Datadog, so you can also set up the Datadog integration. Yeah, and yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So in short, if I want to use Prometheus for that, I would have to write an adapter for the API.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. And also, like, yeah,
Okay.
the good example, yeah.
Is the scaling happening on the infrastructure level metrics only on the CPU, memory limits, whatnot, or application level metrics are also possible to decide the scaling?
Regarding our solution or KEDA? Yeah, our solution, no, we are vertically scale the workloads based on like usage. So we are not taking into account the third-party things, yeah, the triggers and so on.
No, like latency, the error.
Oh, nope. But good point. Maybe we'll.
KEDA is also KEDA is taking into account like if there is a latency increase, so it can.
Of course. Yeah. Because you can utilize any custom metric which you want, and you can like, yeah. For example, if our office ordered 5 pizzas, so please increase the amount of like replicas to not like disrupt us. Yeah. Yeah.
We can take one last question. Speaking
Yeah.
of pizzas.
Yeah.
Then I will do some logistics. So,
Last question time.
To calculate the prices, you directly fetch it from the cloud provider API, so you cube cost or something in the background?
Yes, of course. We are fetching the. We have integration with cost and usage report, of course, or without any additional setup. If you are just using the basic prices for spot and on-demand instances, we already like taking it from the cloud provider's API. Yeah. Thanks a lot. My contacts are pretty simple. Karim at perfectscale.io. Please write me if something will be needed. And this black, yeah. Start your free trial. We have 1 month of free trials. We also have free tier, so you might play with it. And like, happy scaling, folks, and happy anniversary for Kubernetes. Yeah.
thank you, Karim. Thank you, everyone, for patiently listening and making it an interactive session. This is always nice when people are engaging, asking questions, and I'm sure we have a lot to discuss. We have some stories also from people, so Now it's time. I think he was going to give me a perfect segue, but then he took it away with the 2 or 3 pizzas when the company orders pizzas. So I'm going to get that segue back and say, speaking of pizzas, we have the pizzas here. So just once again, thanks to Perfect Scale and Chris for the pizzas, and Mercedes-Benz IO for the drinks. So drinks over here, once again, logistics for people who came in. Drinks are on the left side. The restrooms are all the way to the end. And we will, let's start in about 20 minutes. I will make some representative music to indicate that we are trying to get back. It's a bit difficult with all these people. So once you start hearing the music, please try to settle in and we will get started with the next talk. In the meantime, enjoy your pizzas.
Maybe one thing, who just came, please sign up for the consent form that we are allowed to take pictures.
There's also salad.
There's also salad for those who don't want pizzas.
Can I use the mic?
Sure.
Pizza.
Yeah, you do. Let's grab some food. Last time I was late and then we actually sorry.
I hope you're enjoying.
Yes. But we need a celebration of the 10th years.
We need a cake the next time.
With candles and
Candles and cake.
Yeah.
I was thinking that we would do another one where like we are going to throw like a big party. So Benazir, actually the main organizer, she's planning to host something in a beer garden even. Right? So that's an idea in progress and where we can have. But it's not 10 years yet. So we are actually celebrating just a bit early. And then,
9 years. Okay.
10 years. The 10th year will be the next month. This month, later this month, I think is when it comes.
Yes, that's good.
Technically, we could also use
Hast du ja schon nicht gesagt?
Patch is here the for both. For the patch value to new value, and
Was soll ja das werden? Sowieso auch mit Videos ein paar Early Adopters zum Beispiel. Ja, und jetzt sind wir gerade dabei, uns den Workflow anzuschauen. Was ist zumindest, das heißt ja Plattform. Genau. Ja, aber du kannst ja sowieso aber ja. Aber ja. Sozusagen auf dem Wort. Wir haben immer noch, aber weil wir jetzt anfangen zu erscheinen. Auf jeden Fall hat, glaube ich, haben wenig bisher noch auf den Charts, weil wir haben immer noch so zumindest da nicht in den Charts ja, genau, da fragen wir ja schon, wo das herkommt. Das Problem ist halt nicht, aber läuft es dann auch irgendwie Untergrad oder innerhalb Vorlesungen, alles was wir fertig sind, also Englisch, aber auch tut ja auch alles funktioniert, ohne dass es dann irgendwie auf die davon wäre das ein Thema, wenn der Timeout ist, dann ist halt der API-Request. Aber weiter für die Controller, ich meine, für die Nation auf die Klasse. Genau, ja, genau. Und die dann offen zu haben, hin und her zu wechseln zwischen und dann da halt auch die Leute zu einem Klassen ich habe die Weisheit, ich war ja 1,5 Jahre Student, haben ja angefangen, Agnes zu nehmen. Ich finde die Setup war wirklich auch besser, aber
Das macht halt die ganzen Sachen, Pushen, die Hackanlegen, das hat alles einen Job funktioniert. Das Gleiche und das
Ja, ich weiß, die haben ja auch gefragt, ich konnte halt nicht im Rahmen zu deswegen konnte ich, also es war wirklich sorry.
10 more minutes.
Okay, yeah, like in 5 minutes we start playing the music so that before the sunset later. And this time I'm gonna ask people to like do three, so that it's easier than
I know the task mainly, but I know that Porsche was done ja, weil Marco meint, der will auch mal nochmal ein Meetup outside of the
Absolutely. So you're looking for someone or you're looking for a job? Okay, I will announce it as we end the break. I will do like a little thing section. So we usually haven't done it, but I think that's a great idea because if you find a job from here, that's perfect. So what I will do is as we end the break, I will ask if everyone is hiring and then we can sounds good. Or you could also like I will also say if anyone is interested to just like come and pitch. Okay, that's okay. If you want to say, hey, I'm working on this and like I'm looking for a job, that's also cool. I don't know what it is.
Nicht, dass das
Ja, das ist der Text.
so als Gast.
Jetzt machen wir keine Live-Coding-Session. Das ist einfach.
Du hast noch eine Teilslides und das ist
Ich bin Product Manager, das heißt 300.
aber alle im Bund.
Alle im Bund.
Erstes Slide, bitte keine technischen Fragen.
Genau.
So would you like to take my slide?
Yeah, let's do that. So you're flying in and then flying back. Yeah, most of the people yeah, actually, I did that. back in the day, like now money is tight. And also like the company grew, but like when they started with the company like 5 years ago, or even like before COVID, like the January before COVID, I was there like 2 weeks and stayed over the weekend. Went there even to festivals and stuff. So there were some better times in the company where we can basically there we can just could have just booked our trip on off, nobody asked anything. You just book your trip and then say we do something, we need to like mingle work together with the colleagues. But yeah, nowadays it's like you're allowed to travel like 2 times a year, and everything else your product needs to come up with basically. But it's also there's a workshop opening in a couple of weeks and services we have this in the company, this like community of practice model, I don't know if you're familiar. Like they're like we have people with a certain role, even like across like different teams, like come together, so they share whatever, what the role needs to prepare and stuff like that. And within that you also always have and as I'm one of the only one left in Germany, it's always interesting. Or like in Portugal. So it's not too bad being the only one. Yeah, I put on the music.
Music time. Hey, nice to see you again. It's a bit more chill this time because we're just winging it in terms of the organizing. Hopefully we have fun.
Oh, das ist die Kubernetes Community Days.
Ah, okay. Das war in Hamburg irgendwann, oder?
Nee,
Das war. Ah, okay.
Zweite, dritte, vierte.
Okay, nee. Nein, in Berlin. Von den wenigen Nee, also, ja.
Yeah, sure. We can plan around that. So you can message us on Meetup app as well. I think that's the best way. I'm trying to figure out what's a good way to reach out to all of us because let us hear me that John's trying to put a Slack group together perhaps, and then we can people who are interested in the community space and so that as well. Keep it open on the CNCF public site. Let me get back to this one. This time, thank everybody for time, but stay in the community. Can you Max
Thanks up.
Folks here, starting to get back.
Ja, also die haben einfach noch nicht gute Leute machen auch.
Is that the Max one?
No, I can from
Can you, Anita,
Yes, I will get it.
Ah, okay. Also ich kenn ein paar ja, das ist tatsächlich der Fallschirm war eigentlich so, ich kenne aber tatsächlich aber ich kann das auch gerne
All right, folks, it's time to get started. Before I welcome Dominic here, I hope you had fun with the chats. We are going to keep them going after the talks, so keep the energy, lovely energy out here. I think, so one of our community members and friends here had a fantastic idea that I want to try today, right? So we are going to do, before we welcome Dominic, a quick show of hands on who's hiring and who's looking for a role, right? So who's hiring? Raise hand. Who knows a team that is looking for people related to Kubernetes? Okay, thank you. People might reach out to you, so you can have chats about that. And who is looking for a role? Just to match it on, right. So this is not recorded, right? The camera doesn't see you, so don't feel shy. Who is looking for a role? Okay, so now we have like a little match. If anyone, yeah, you just like, I see some people just like, yeah, I know. So yeah, this is a good way to match. The next time we will try to make it a bit more like a live pitch where people, if you want to come here and say, hey, this is what my experience is and this is what I'm looking for, this is a good way to match each other with opportunities, and we would be the happiest if you found a job through this one, right? Like we are all together in this one. So without further ado, and I see now most people are back on their spots, let's welcome our next speaker for the night with a huge round of applause. Please welcome Dominic.
Thank you. All right, we want to talk about maximizing value with Kubernetes as a product to fulfill the promise of the cloud. That's the whole title. It's a bit much, but I'll promise it's not that boring. Well, maybe. First off, platform as a product, pretty straightforward. Who of you is actually a product owner or a product manager or anything in a product role? No one? No one? Oh, that's always nice. It's my best hobby, just going into a room full of engineers and just say, all right, let's talk about product. Jira, tickets, Scrum. Cool. We are not using any of those words today. That's good. Well, I did, but, besides that. And in general, are you at least in a product team? Any one of you? Oh, yeah, at least some hands go up. That's good. So the good thing is, let's start with the basics. And the basics is, why the fuck do I talk to you? Well, sorry, bleep, why the heck do I talk to you? I'm Dominic, I'm product manager at Giant Swarm. And I'm responsible there for our observability platform. Well, that doesn't mean anything to this talk, but I was before that responsible for our Kubernetes as a product, our Kubernetes platform. So in that, I actually worked on all of this stuff. So there's my expertise on that. Besides that, I always talk about product and product ops, cloud, platforms, people, stuff like that. And why do I do Kubernetes as a product and observability platforms? It's because I work for Giant Swarm. We are a company that does smarter platform engineering. Basically, we work with platform teams of our customers from different places to increase developer productivity. If you want to know more about that, just chat me up afterwards. Pretty nice company, but let's dive in. So I said, fulfilling the promise of the cloud. So the first question, for sure, for a lot of you is like, what the heck is the promise of the cloud? And a lot of that, when the whole cloud hype started and all of this was like, go to the cloud. It's faster, it's cheaper, it's like more scalable, it's easier, it's more resilient, it's more of that, more of that. And at the end, the question is like, what is the reality of all of this? And if we look at some examples, there was a very famous example of 37 Signals. I think that's the name of the company. Yeah, exactly. And the guy on that, Heinemann, that one, he had a very extensive, Twitter or now known X thread and updates on his company completely pulling out of the cloud as a very big story. And I think a lot of our, peers and a lot of organizations have the same problem. Even now with, 10 years of Kubernetes in, we just had a talk where, we heard that even after 10 years, Kubernetes still has a lot of problems and still doesn't do everything perfectly right, like scaling. So in that sense, even after such a long time with building up such a maturity, a lot of organizations and people struggle with Kubernetes and with the cloud, because that's somehow synonymous in that way. But the question then that comes up is like, what the heck is the problem with that whole thing, with the cloud experience and all of that? Is Kubernetes just the wrong thing? And I mean, we could now talk about like serverless and how AWS Prime Video, like Amazon Prime Video, is no longer using AWS serverless, which is another story that was blown up pretty well. So the question is not really, is Kubernetes the wrong thing, but the question we want to look at today is like, what exactly is product management? And how can product management fulfill this whole shtick with, we have issues with cloud. A lot of organizations have issues with Kubernetes. What can we do? And because he is no product owner or product manager, let's just, completely go into the basics and just talk about the product management process and what actually is different there. I promise that's just 1 hour or something that we talk about this. Well, not joking. The whole process in itself is pretty straightforward. Most of you will already know this whole delivery part here, which is like, you have some job. I don't want to say ticket. I said I don't want to say ticket. So now I did it. You have a ticket. You refine the ticket. You have some work package, and then you work on that work package, and then you iterate on that, and that's, everybody who's ever done Scrum or anything like that is like really used to that. A lot of organizations, even in Germany, are now doing it and like have this whole delivery part with refining your work, developing it, then going into iterations and, increasing that. They have that pretty well out already. There's enough agile coaches to tell you that. And the bigger part of, if you look at product management and the product management process is this first part, which still a lot of organizations don't yet really do, which is like the whole part with exploration. They do it, but in like isolated cases, where like there's a business department somewhere that doesn't have any clue about like the engineering and the technical part, and they do that exploration part with coming up with a strategy, prioritizing, the work within that strategy, and then doing a discovery on what is the right solution for the problems that you're solving. The big issue is, this is what a product team should completely do. And, this is what most product teams in organizations that have trouble are not doing. So that's the problem. So product management, with all this, building the right things and doing this whole strategy and all of that, is actually risk management. So you manage, risks, and you have different roles to manage different risks. In general, a team, Teresa Torres is a very, very good person in the whole product field, and she always talks about the product trio within a product team, which is like 3 different roles. There's more, there can be more, and there can be less, especially like within Kubernetes. Do you really need a designer? Who knows? But in general, there's like multiple risks and then multiple roles being responsible for that risk. Like value and viability, it's like, is a product or is a change, like a new feature, actually delivering value to your customer? Will your customer use it? If there's no value for them, they don't use it. That's an actual risk, building something that has no value to any customer. Also viability. There can be value, but it's like so expensive to build that, then you're not making money with it. So that's risks that the product manager has to manage. So, making sure that risk is covered. And designers, usability, there is a lot of organizations that don't really understand usability risk, and they just throw something out, but users have to be able to use your product. Also looking at Kubernetes, it's very complex. Not every user is able to actually work with Kubernetes in the right way. So there's a risk that, some people in a product team have to manage. And then feasibility, which is the engineer's job. Can you actually do a thing? Like, if a product person like me just jumps in and is like, hey, let's build a ChatGPT for Kubernetes tomorrow. And then somebody has to say, no, let's not do that. So that's the different risks you have to cover. And if you do that, if you have like different roles covering different risks and all that, you can say, this whole thing leads to us putting the value that we deliver to a customer into the center of all of our strategies. So it's all about value, and because feasibility makes sure there's value, all of that, it all comes down to value that we deliver to customers. And that's what product thinking and with that product management is. We just find the right value and make sure we deliver that value to our customers in a nice way. That's the exploration part, finding value. The delivery part is then making sure that goes out to customers. So all of that is, basics product management. Well, nice, but isn't Kubernetes way too complex for all of that? It sounds really nice, and if you have like a cool shop or a small app somewhere, like Duolingo can do this, but can you actually do that with like Kubernetes, which is very abstract? We don't have designers because we don't have UI, stuff like that. And I think, yeah, it does definitely work. So let's have a look at the big five. Which is like a top 5 of special cases when it comes to product thinking with, a complex product, a complex infrastructure product like Kubernetes. And let's start with number 5. Woo. Kubernetes itself has no value on its own. That sounds weird in the beginning, especially when you work on Kubernetes and I come in and just say, hey, you have no value that you produce directly. Everybody's like, what? But in that sense, it really is the thing that, even us in Giant Swarm, where we basically sell Kubernetes, so for us, it actually has value because there comes money in if we give Kubernetes out. But even then, we have to think about nobody's actually buying Kubernetes just to put it onto a shelf and then just be like, look at my nice Kubernetes when guests come around. Nobody does that. So what you have to think about is, what is the value on top of that? There's an awesome book, which is Team Topologies, that talks about team organizations and stuff like that. What they talk about as well, very good, is like different types of teams, like different structures and what they do. There's like the stream-aligned team, which is like aligned across the value stream. So for example, in an online shop, the checkout, you definitely have a value for a customer with a checkout. And then there's other teams like enabling, complicated subsystem, and platform teams that support this stream-aligned team with capabilities so that the stream-aligned team can actually focus on the value stream. And in that sense, Kubernetes is a platform. We already had that, you said it right, Kubernetes is a very good platform for platforms. And that's very important to understand if you actually work on Kubernetes. You don't deliver value to your customers directly, you deliver it indirectly by being a platform for your actual stream-aligned teams. And then you have a different interaction than you would have with like a typical Duolingo app, right? You have to be closer to your customers, you have to interact with them closer, you have to cooperate with them, or deliver something as a service, which is then abstracting away a bit more. Very much a lot of details. If you want to know more about that, come around. But in general, the important bit to understand here is you don't deliver direct value. And this is a nice little tool that can help you user needs mapping Just Google it. It's definitely helping you understand where the actual value to your users comes from and like how you deliver indirect value to the business goals of your company. Mapping that, can help you understand that. So with that coming back, Kubernetes itself has no value on its own, which is different than, for example, with a typical B2C app. But nonetheless, it's important, and it's a important platform product, helping your business delivery, your business value delivery. All right, number 4. Kubernetes has customers and consumers. Also sounds weird, but the people that are using your product are actually rarely the people that are actually paying you, especially if you're internal. That's a completely different story. But in general, you always have some managers that have like budgets and all that, and then you have engineers that are interacting with your product. And in your worst case, your managers don't understand the heck about what you're actually doing. And in even a worse case, the consumers that are happy with you, with your product, can't really sell it to their own manager. So that's also a job you have to do. You have to think about both. You have to think about a manager that really gives you money at the end, and you have to think about the consumer that really uses your product at the end. Also, a very helpful tool to really get into that is like personas and jobs to be done. Different tools, you can just Google it. There's a bazillion examples of that out there. But again, product thinking in there and product thinking tool help you identify your target audiences and help you identify what are the motivations of those target audiences and why are they actually, why would they give you money? And then, as I said, very important, you need to make managers happy to actually get money, to get into the contract, and then you need to make engineers happy to stay funded, because if the engineers complain all the time, then you lose your contract. And that's really important. Some companies are just focusing on managers, so they easily get in, but then engineers hate them, and that's a pain. Some companies are only focusing on engineers, and then they don't get into contract, even though they have a really, really, really nice product. So don't do that, and think about customers and consumers. Number 3. So, talking about consumers and customers. Nice typo, but Kubernetes consumers are engineers or machines. So, talking about customers, no manager or like weird managers will actually use Kubernetes. But like rarely an actual manager, an actual customer will interact on a daily basis with your product if you deliver Kubernetes. So most of the time it's some automation in the background, it's some machine that you need to understand in order to understand how to deliver value best to it. And a lot of cases it's also consumers, so engineers that you need to understand. Pretty easy for you because you're engineers. But like there's this thing with you are not your own customer because you have a different perspective, different understanding of your product. So how do you actually understand consumers like engineers and machines? That's the part where like, you're all, okay, yeah, nice. And then being in a room full of product managers and saying like, you need to understand engineers. They're like, what? All right, so that's the big difference in the crowd. That's always nice. Another product thinking tool that can help you there is like looking at signals and metrics. That's the HEART framework, comes somewhere from Google, pretty nice thing. You can set up goals for different categories on there, and then signals where you can see if those goals are actually achieved or not, and then set in metrics that show you like, quantitatively, if the number goes up, it's good. If the number goes down, it's bad, something like that. So that you have an actual indication of, is your product successful? Are people happy? Are people, adopting your product? Things like that. And there's always, whenever you look at it, like there's always some metrics that you can look into. Some metrics are really good. Some metrics are really stupid. Some metrics are goals, which is stupid, but, So find your own product metrics, not just like resilience metrics and all of that for Kubernetes, because that monitoring is like always done pretty well, but also value metrics, like is your Kubernetes actually delivering value to your customers? And what is this value actually? You know, knowing all of that really helps you when you go into product thinking mode and build up such a canvas and build up your signals, your goals, and your metrics. So big question here, qualitative or quantitative, one of those things. Typical is like, you know, being Duolingo again, it's like, oh, I have like 20,000, well, it's more like 2 million active users a day. Just throw out a survey to 10% of them and you have data for like days. The bigger question in, or the bigger, you know, specialty in Kubernetes again, how many engineers are actually using your platform? Is a survey really the right way for you to do it? Like if you have like 20 engineers or like 20 product teams, even if you have 100 engineers, like engineers are really hard to get to answer surveys, believe me. So you'll never find a really good, and it's like always the 5 same guys. That's not, you know, that's not how this works. But yeah, so you won't really have the chance to get a lot of quantitative metrics within Kubernetes and product thinking. So qualitative, which is like, you know, quantitative is like, it's a number and you can just compare that number. So it's stacking up. Like number of visitors is like a quantitative thing because it's a number, you can compare it to other numbers. Qualitative is more like, do you like the product? Well, that could also be like from 1 to 10, but like, you know, what's your biggest complaint? That's a qualitative one. You can't really compare it that easily, but it gives you also very good insight if you're doing it right. And that's one of the biggest challenges within, you know, hard technical products like Kubernetes, finding the right questions to ask and finding the right qualitative metrics to do, you know, to get those insights, those signals. But yeah, talking about your consumers a lot, don't forget your customers because they also have motivations, they also have goal signals and all that. So what motivates your management? Also important to find out. But yeah, so complex perspectives onto your product from like weird people, engineers. That's not your typical mom because again, like this is the first thing you go to a product management conference and they're like, oh, if your mom can understand your product, you're doing it right. I'm like, I don't know if I really think that. So I can't really ask my mom what to do here. You know, it's like, you know, what do you like this YAML file? And she's like, I love you, kid, but you know. So yeah, number 2. So we talked about it already. Kubernetes is very complex in a way that it doesn't really have a UI, besides, you know, backstage maybe, if some people would say, but it's not. So there is no UI for Kubernetes, so your interface is an API. We in Giant Swarm, for example, we created an UI and we're exploring Backstage now as a UI for it. But even with that, the main touch point will always be the API, especially for the Kubernetes team, because the Portal team is a different team. So the Kubernetes team definitely only has the API and the CLI tool, but it's still the API, right? So in that sense, you know, you have to work with different methods. You can't just, you know, go to your customer and do clicky bunty and they click through your UI and then you understand what they are actually doing. And changes are way harder to throw out because like an API can break so much behind it and you don't know how all of the machines and engineers are interacting with your API because engineers are very creative in finding ways that you don't think about using your product. So you need to work with like an API first design or API contracts and all of that to really have a customer-centric approach to, you know, how your touch points work, how users interact with your product. And again, that's a big challenge for a lot of organizations. And how can you do it? There's again a nice little product thinking tool. It's like something like MVP, which is minimum viable product. So again, you work with iterations. You start very small, like this donut that has only sugar on it. And then you try out chocolate and you see, oh, people like chocolate. And then you try out sparkles and you see, oh, people hate sparkles. So let's peel them off again. So that's how you can work with, API contracts and all that to make sure that your iterations are progressing like from bit to bit. And how do you find the right iteration? Again, exploration, testing, early feedback loops. Really talk to your people, use your product signals, use your metrics that you have, all of that to identify if you're running into the right direction or running against the tree. And a lot of that is like, also having a lot of technical know-how is really important. And again, if I'm in a room full of product people, they're like, oh no. But for you, it's easy. And that's the beauty of it, because we're talking about a product team, not just a product manager. We had this thing with the product trio. So the whole product team has to come together and then, help each other to understand those issues, help each other to understand the right next iteration. Looking at my team, I'm rarely the one who says like, let's do this next. I'm going into the room and say like, give me options. Where do we where do we go next? And like, give me pro and contra for it. And then we work together to understand, the customer perspective on it, but also the feasibility and, find the right iteration together. That's really important. And that's, especially talking about this whole exploration part not being done by a lot of organizations or being done in a completely different office is always a problem. And if you ever hear the term of technical PO, that's also because in this area, like, technical background is really important for a lot of organizations, that you actually understand what you're talking about there. So, number 2. With Kubernetes, that's what we had. Number 1. So Kubernetes is very abstract and technical. I know I repeat myself, but it's like the last slide, so let me repeat myself. The biggest issue with that abstract thing, again, going to my mom, trying to tell her what Kubernetes is, that's not going to work if I just start, container orchestration and all that. But I have to, reduce the abstraction for them. Again, you probably don't need to reduce abstractions and all of that for your customers, for your consumers, because those are engineers and technical people. They work with that product on a daily basis and potentially know it better than you. But you also have customers and you also have other stakeholders and you have like internal people that will throw things at you and you need to explain to them why you don't do the thing that they throw to you while, having this very complex product. So what helps is like the almighty biggest, bastard sword of product management, which is visualization. So that's why we all have like Canva or Miro licenses in all companies, because we product manager are actually having to draw boxes somewhere. So visualize your product, visualize Kubernetes. User story map is a typical one. I want to show you the product journey map because that's one that I actually created. So that's a pretty simple canvas. You have like a product lifecycle, so different product life cycles also within Kubernetes and all that. Then you have customer activity within every lifecycle. We'll see that in a detail. And then you have different customers or consumers, right? You have platform devs, you have app devs, you have the management, stuff like that. Different perspectives that use that or that do this customer activity differently, potentially. Some of them also the same, but doesn't matter. There's different perspectives on that. And then there's relevant metrics. We talked about it, how to see if your goal is achieved or not. And then we can derive opportunities, which is then, is it the right iteration to work on it? Like, what's the next MVP, next viable product, stuff like that. So those are your opportunities that you can then work on. Looking at it, for example, with Kubernetes as a product, You know, very, very simple one like that can look way bigger, and it actually looks way bigger, but simplification. You have like the creation phase, then you have the operational phase, and then you have the cleanup phase of your cluster. So the activity of create a cluster and then create a deployment. The big difference in here is like the perspectives, for example. Looking at the operational phase where you operate, you know, a workload or your workload cluster, or the transparency, which is an easy one. So in the transparency is like actually seeing if your operation is successful, a bit like that, but like seeing if something is wrong. And then the platform teams are interested in monitoring the cluster. So easy transparency for them is like monitoring of the cluster. But for the app teams, they don't really care about the cluster because the cluster is managed by the platform teams. What they care about is the workload monitoring. And then the management is only, you know, caring about the cost because that's what they actually, you know, are responsible for. So you have one bit that is transparency, but three completely different perspectives on that. And, you know, visualizing those perspectives really helps you understand those perspectives. And then, yeah, you have your metrics down here. For example, the number of dashboards views per day can be an indicator for your product. And you can derive opportunities out of that, out of the differences between the perspectives. And if you know, maybe didn't really have anything for one perspective, then you already have your opportunity there. But also from your metrics directly. So if we have very few visits to our cost dashboard, that might be an indication, you know, nobody cares about that, so we don't deliver the right value. Or if you have too many visits to your incident dashboard for cluster or apps, then you see, all right, maybe people are just F5ing the whole day, so maybe we should do alerts or something to give them some more push feedback. But, you know, that's easy. So you have a visualization, and from that visualization, you already have like two nice value opportunities that you could deliver. And, you know, you can just explain it to everybody because it's abstracted away in a visualization. And at the end, the whole thing looks like that. And you know, you can play around with it pretty easily. So Kubernetes, very abstract and very technical, but as we've just seen, you can definitely, with some product thinking tools, with some visualization, you know, tackle that abstraction and make it easier to understand. So, yeah, that's a lot. Sorry for that. But it means, at the end, Kubernetes is the right thing. We just have to do it the right way. I think that's the biggest issue that a lot of organizations are struggling with. A lot of organizations are using Kubernetes even 10 years after it's out in a very difficult way. And product thinking and product management with Kubernetes as well will definitely help us to not produce as much waste and to really focus on the important things and on the value for Kubernetes in the next 10 years, maybe. So also, if you might, you know, maybe not all of you are Kubernetes providers, who knows? But if you don't have a Kubernetes product, all of this that you just learned is also applicable to every other B2B product. Believe me, the whole shebang with our observability platform just was the same. We just went in, looked at customers, consumers, all of that, built up visualizations of the whole product journey and all that. And it really helped us shape how this product works, moved away from just having an observability stack to actually having an observability platform that has a coherent story and then actually value delivery to our customers besides just being there, which is also a problem of a lot of observability platforms or stacks. But that's another talk. So focus on this one. And yeah, thank you. If you want to know more about this topic, I wrote a blog post in the top one. And down below is my LinkedIn link. And any questions? But yeah, clap. Sure. Thank you.
Not a question, but like how to increase this adaptation, so I can share some kind of insight from our journey. So and making the money,
Yeah.
it needs to be abstracted from all this complexity of the ecosystem in general, including observability platform, logging, monitoring, everything, including the Kubernetes platform itself. So good developer experience is the key for success. So providing all the like end-to-end pipelines, all the automation, all the visibility, how to troubleshoot if there is a problem on their deployments, how to roll back, how this can be automated, how to set like a good canary release cycle for an application, how to interact with in an abstract manner, so not to increase the cognitive load on the stream-aligned teams. So this is the key. If you can provide all the end-to-end flows and the visibility, the dashboard, default alerts, so things will be smooth for all the onboardings and all the adaptation. This is from engineering and your customer's perspective. You need to fulfill their requirements. You need to understand what is their pain points, and you need to address them immediately. Otherwise, the adaptation will drastically hard. And then management is only interested in the efficiency and the cost overall. So how this all the work you guys are doing, how it is impacting our overall infrastructure cost. Cost can be operational cost. It could be like a real infrastructure, the CPUs monitor the real pieces. Also the velocity, how you are contributing this productivity of the stream-aligned teams. This is the things that you need to be focusing on to be successfully onboarding your workload to Kubernetes.
That's going to be hard to repeat for the stream. But yeah, sorry, was there a question in that as well?
No, this is
good, yeah. Very good.
Is it clear? Did you able to follow?
Yes. It's a very good point, and I think what you talk about is also one of the biggest hurdles in this whole bit, because I just threw it in very easily with, you just have to do platform teams and stream-aligned teams. But that's a complete organizational change, right? Especially product thinking as well. That's a mindset. It's not just, something that a product team or even an engineer in isolation can do. The whole organization has to follow that principle of the product team is responsible for the exploration as well. And that's where a lot of engineers are really frustrated, and I know that because they can't change that. So it's easy for me to throw it in, but I really think it's the only way on how we actually can deliver successful Kubernetes products or successful infrastructure products in general, if we really follow that guideline of having stream-aligned, having focus on the value, and then different kinds of teams working towards that unified business value. And yeah, it's definitely an overall organizational structure that you need in place for it to be successful. And that's where, maybe I'm in the wrong crowd here, but at least you know it. What's the problem? I hope that helps as well. Cool. Yeah.
Basically, especially the difference between accounting business values or potential value for a business. Like usually you speak about your return of invest.
Yeah.
And as a business, you might want to invest into something new feature. And you have your streamline team, which you seem to be responsible for implementing it. But you also know, okay, there's layers below that before you can actually implement that cool feature.
Yeah.
So is there kind of a simple formula which you could kind of recommend how one would kind of, derive potential costs or kind of what actual value how the value of the platform team actually is calculated into the resulting feature value?
Yeah, that's a tough one, and also one that a lot of organizations are struggling with. There's, especially in Germany and bigger enterprises, I know there's this model of internal, you're just a service provider internally, and then you get paid whatever that service provider says that this costs, and then you calculate it based on what it actually costs for your engineers and all that. I don't really like the idea there, and for example, it doesn't work for providers like us, Chance One, that goes into a company and just says, let us do this, and there's no actual business value for you. And to be honest, we also struggled with that quite a lot to find the right positioning. I think it comes down to the productivity of those stream-aligned teams. That's where you need to focus on when selling it. The opportunity cost of those stream-aligned teams. For example, in Chance One, we always say, in order to do what we do for you in an automated way, you need at least 2 very good senior platform engineers to do that. And they will be busy with that the whole time, and they will disrupt a lot of your stuff. So that's a number that you can throw at people. What do they cost in your market? And you spare that by taking us, then you throw the money to something else. But we know we can be cheaper than them because of the scaling factor that we have. And it's the same way for a lot of organizations where you can say, all right, using a process where we now have Kubernetes in place and people can just get their infrastructure and scale up and down their infrastructure in a heartbeat, instead of waiting for 3, 5, 6, 7, 40 days, whatever, that will elevate them to not be blocked for those days. And how much does your engineer cost being blocked? How much does your engineer cost looking at YAML files they don't understand? And that's something that you can throw into that and calculate that.
Do you have any kind of recommendation also kind of how to get the platform team, or how to get buy-in of the platform team when you're actually approaching new kind of feature sets to provide for customers? Because that's what I also struggle with. I've been in quite some startups before already. That's what I see. As soon as the startup grows and teams start to form, you usually also have to kind of internal teams which are being providers to the others, and kind of the internal teams usually start to lose the connection with the actual product, with the actual customers, and that's, I think, one of the most critical ones, because when that happens, then it just usually is a matter of time before it goes into the wrong direction.
Yeah, I mean, you're right with that. That's why I get money. That's why you have good product managers in place, because they make sure they are like the connection into the team. Again, I think product management and product thinking is a thing that the whole team has to do. It's effort, and it's a lot of effort, but it's worth it, because the waste would be way harder than the effort that you have to take to stay with the customer, internal and external, to understand this indirect value chain that we've seen, to actually understand all of that and print it out, put it in your office, whatever helps you to just have that on every day. And yeah, that's why I really recommend teams should have product managers or product owners in place to really facilitate that, because to be honest, I'm busy the whole day, and you see all of those people that they are in meetings the whole day, and you think, just do something. But this understanding perspectives of consumers, of customers, of different people, different perspectives onto your product, that's basically the biggest part of the work. Really going out, talking to people, talking how they use your product, and then bringing that expertise back into the team and telling the team, you have a great idea, but you're not your customer, and I, talk to those and those people, and they see it differently. So let's test it out in that way, and then test it out in that way, do an A/B test, whatever, and then find out what's the right direction. It's hard, but what isn't in IT, right? I mean, we could be all SAP consultants or something, but all right, more questions. You were really busy up there.
I was wondering if you have some material to convince someone to switch to, for example, Giant Swan or other established platforms when they're already on the road of trying to build their own platform, but it's not their core business, and so they will probably fail.
Yeah. To be honest, that's our main target audience. People that already, like organizations that already have a maturity within the organization to have a platform. And those are the actually interesting ones, because when talking, not just talking about Giants One, but talking about platform engineering and platform providers, there are others on the market as well that are also good. Even some Berlin-based, like Humanitech, for example, as a platform orchestrator, which is Berlin-based. Hamburg is Kubernetes. Like, there are many different platform providers, and all of them help you abstract away a pain that you only feel if you're actually doing it, right? Like, you know, we had last month, I think it was, you had to talk about, Bertrand had to talk about the journey of Mercedes-Benz. And this typical journey is always like, you know, we're like 3 engineers and we're the platform team now. And, you know, we provide Kubernetes clusters for you. Oh no, we have 300 Kubernetes clusters and need to roll out 125. What do we do? And then you do nothing besides having those great ideas on this is a value that we can deliver. Here's some automation that we can put in. But all you do is just look at clusters that have crashed. And that's where, you know, those platform providers come in.
Like, this is your core business, but specifically, just to put it back to the question,
sure.
Specific, like an entry point, like a good blog post, good like starting point. Your homepage, maybe, if you say so.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
Like, how do I recommend, like, if I'm advising a customer
Sure.
to revisit their strategy, if they may even have a PO for their internal platform already, how do I talk to that PO and quickly convince him to try other directions, because he is now convinced that he's responsible for this existing platform
sure.
inside the customer. How do I help him at his company?
Yeah, reference is definitely our website. We just reworked it, put a lot of effort in. Check out our website. One very good question that my, you know, one of our sales guys always brings is like, you know, what did you actually want to achieve this year and you couldn't because you were blocked? And just that question already triggers in a lot of people like, oh yeah. Yeah, exactly. And then you can go on and be like, you know, look at those opportunities and, you know, not just Giants One. Cool, yeah. Yes. Oh yeah.
Can we do 2 more? Let's do
2 more, there's 2 more.
Everything I should take off now.
Yeah.
Thank you a lot, Dominic, for the great talk.
Sure.
So I would have a question. So unlike you know, B2C market where we know what to monitor as, you know, engineers to make sure our customers are happy.
Yeah.
It's not the same for B2B platforms. So it's completely different problem as we monitor infrastructure. So there we can like monitor like the number of checkouts, errors, saturations, slowness, and so on. But when it comes to B2B platforms that we are selling to business, and there is like complete company using it, and there is engineers who actually consumers of it, like you said, monitor your customers and your consumers, and make them happy. So what are the right metrics that they should look to make sure that those customers and consumers, both of them, are really happy about the platform that I am providing, and especially in the time of incidents, because at that moment it will be a clash. This is your problem, this is my problem, because I have a workload running on your platform, and then there is an incident, and I don't know like the real problem there, and then it will be some clash about which problem is it. Then I need to have certain metrics that they can tell me this is right or what I am doing is right wrong. So that's the question mark there.
Yeah, if you have a good idea on what's the right metrics, let's found a startup and become rich. Because it's not that easy. I think, you know, you talked about adoption rate being one of the major success points, especially talking about platforms or Kubernetes. If your product is not being adopted, throw it out. Then definitely you failed with that. So adoption rate is always the very first good metric that you can put in. But it's also, for me, it's like, you know, you have an assumption on how people are interacting with your product. Measure that assumption. You know, people will deploy deployments on your cluster. Measure how many deployments are done on a daily basis. If that breaks down or goes significantly up, that might be, you know, some indication of something not working as expected or something. So yeah, but there's millions of possibilities, and I think whoever says like, I have this one thing, is becoming really, really rich. But you know, one ring to rule them all never worked in that sense. All right, last question. Yeah, you.
Thanks a lot for your talk. I'm curious about how it is like for you as a product manager to sell and innovate on a product where you don't really have an impact on the product itself, right? So if you get users being frustrated about, I don't know, some of the inner workings on Kubernetes, you don't build the product, right? So there's only so much I imagine you can do around that to kind of make the life easier for your users. But yeah, I'm just curious about this. How do you still manage to have a competitive edge and distinguish yourself from other of these providers when yeah, like you said that you build like this front end. That's probably one thing I can imagine, but yeah.
No, I mean, yeah, how do I not have a burnout working with open source? I mean, we contribute a lot open source, right? So within our organization, we're a really open source company, and you might have met a lot of our engineers when also contributing to Kubernetes, cluster API, all of that. I think it's really significantly important if you're an open source company and an open source user that you also push the boundaries of the products you're actually using by involving yourself in the open source community. Also for me as a product manager, I've seen it with a lot of other product managers that I work with in the infrastructure field that think, you know, it's too technical, not my area. I think we have to become way more active in open source as well as product managers. But it's happening. Looking at the last KubeCon and the KubeCon before that is way more product managers and way more product talk on there, which is really interesting to see because that shift actually happens. So that's one thing, actually contributing to that. But also, I don't think most of the problems are actually with the product itself. I mean, yeah, etcd, yes, we all know it. So there's issues, but it's not the only issues. It's issues that you can work on that need more time to be worked on and to be resolved. You can do that. But also there's like nobody actually providing Kubernetes, like even, and we did it for the last 10 years. We were really, really early adopters. And even we have still so much to improve on with Kubernetes because it's such a big, such a complex topic. For example, the very first thing I did was change the way how we manage releases. And then just have a really nice, really documented release process and align the whole organization on that release process. That was like half a year of work, just that. But it improved our lives so much without being dependent on the upstream community. And you know, the upstream community even has some interest now in, you know, how do we do it and stuff like that. So there's always some work besides that, how you can improve it by building up more abstractions, building up another operator, automating some process, doing CI/CD stuff. There's always something to do. Yeah, cool. By the way, I have shirts, so very good questions, but I only have like an S and XL and an L. So if that's your size and you had a good question, come forward.
Thank you, Dominic, for your talk. No, Aditya gave me the last words, the final words. So there's still pizza. Feel free, enjoy if you want, or take them at home. There's also still beer and other drinks in the fridges, so you can also grab another drink and feel free to stay a little longer or not, as you wish. One other thing, just make sure that everybody signed their consent, of course, for the awesome pictures we did. So all of you get also on social media or not, if you disagree, of course. And then there were a couple of more things. So Aditya did the question with like job seekers and the other ones who employ people. So yeah, feel free to mingle and get in touch. Also over a drink maybe. And the last one, if you want to have a talk yourself, so we usually do a bi-monthly meetup. You can even do it more often if you would have more talks or whatever. So feel free to come up to one of us if you want to contribute in that way to the community and share your user journey or whatever you have on your mind in the cloud native or Kubernetes ecosystem. And also the same for sponsors. So now again, thank you, Chris. You know, always the most appreciation for the pizzas. So if you or your company wants to have that appreciation.
Someone else has to do the
exactly. Someone got to sponsor the food. And I think that is already the wrap up, right? So I hope everybody enjoyed the evening. And yeah, enjoy.
Take the pizzas and feel free to take the boxes directly. We don't want to leave any, we don't want to throw them away, so please take boxes.
Hey, let's see how much is left.
Yeah, like.
Hey, thank you very much. This was surprising. I didn't